guys? Good to see you guys.
I'm Lauren, this is Erin. We're filming another one of these daily devos for you guys, and we're just really excited to talk to you about a fun subject that we're going to introduce in just a minute. So, quick question. What is one daily routine, Erin, that has been disrupted because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, so obviously, you guys have a ton of routines that are probably thrown off. Hopefully you're still brushing your teeth and taking showers. But for me, probably the routine that I'm sad to have lost is I am a Starbucks junkie, and so I go to Starbucks all the time. I bring my laptop, I sit down, I camp out, I work there, I'll listen to podcasts there, and Starbucks has closed all their lobbies nationwide, and so I now am either making my coffee at home or running in quick to get it and to go. And so if you're a Starbucks barista out there, I miss you.
Okay.
Lauren, what about you? What's been one of the routines that has been upset for you?
I'm sure, much like many of your parents, grocery shopping. I went to the grocery store yesterday. It was empty. I had to drive out to Granite Bay, where my parents live. For whatever reason, Granite Bay full of groceries. So if your parents are out of groceries, go there. But it's annoying to drive all the way out there just to get vegetables. Okay.
And say hi to Lauren's parents. Drive out to Granite Bay. They'll give you food.
They would love that.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about this idea of God's sovereignty. And that's a big word, sovereignty. What the heck does that mean? So Erin, could you help us out?
Yeah, so this word sovereign, kind of the easiest way to think of it is sovereign is complete authority or supreme authority. And so in the Bible we see this idea that God is sovereign, that no matter what's happening, ultimately the ultimate authority overshadowing everything is that God has authority over all creation. And so sometimes it may not seem like, oh, God is doing this, and sometimes God doesn't cause something, but God is the authority over what is happening.
So what is one example in Scripture that you've seen of God's sovereignty?
Yeah, so in Scripture we see a ton of examples of God's sovereignty. One of the stories that I think is crazy cool is about this guy named Joseph. Now, if you don't know Joseph's story, here's the 45-second Cliff Notes version. I don't know if you guys have Cliff Notes.
Probably
Lauren, you work with... No, okay, Cliff Notes. I am old. I apologize. Cliff Notes helped you get short version. Anyway, here we go. So Joseph is one of 12 brothers, and he's kind of the favored brother. Maybe you have a sibling like that. Maybe that's you, and you know it, and you eat it up. But Joseph is the favored sibling. When he is a teenager, his 11 brothers, they sell him into slavery. And so that's a rough way to get back at a sibling. And so Joseph, he goes off into slavery. Just kind of sum up his story. Over the course of a couple decades, he goes to prison. He is a servant. Eventually, by trusting in God and God's blessing over him, he ends up becoming the second most powerful person in all of Egypt, which was the most powerful nation at the time. Now, it's been decades since Joseph left his family, and there is a famine. There's a shortage of food, kind of like your experience going to the grocery store. And Joseph's brothers end up going to Egypt, to the one country that kind of had a surplus. And who do they end up seeing? They end up seeing their old brother, Joseph, and his brothers are oh snap, we're about to die. And so Joseph doesn't kill his brothers, which is good. Hopefully that is not something you have thought through when trying to share electronics at your home. I don't know. Get along with your siblings, guys. Love them. And so Joseph, he ends up revealing himself, and his brothers are fearing for their life. Joseph doesn't kill them, but he says this statement, and this is in Genesis chapter 50. And I think this statement kind of shows us God's sovereignty play out in the story. Joseph says this to his brothers, but Joseph said, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. And so Joseph says hey, listen, you guys did something, and at the time it was terrible. It was rough, but Joseph, at the end of his life, later on, he could see, oh, God was the ultimate authority. He was the ultimate person being sovereign over the situation. So even though he was experiencing really hard things, God was still using those hard situations for good, whether Joseph recognized it at the time or not.
Awesome. So then, how can this idea of God's sovereignty impact our lives today?
Yeah, so obviously, like right now, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of fears with our current situation. And so it's easy in these moments to kind of get either caught up in the moment or feel overwhelmed or anxious. And guys, I think something that I need to remember, and we all need to remember, is that God is the authority over this situation. And we may not understand why everything is happening, but we can have assurance that, and we can put our trust that God is the authority here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And for those of you who are watching these videos, there's a devotional diving into more depth of what is God's sovereignty in the description below. We would love for you guys to check that out. And also feel free to comment on our videos, not to like boost our ratings, but just to create community with one another in an online platform. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. You can't pinch anybody because we have to stay 5 feet apart, but try to wear green.
Goodbye.
Bye.